Yujiro Kushida was born May 12, 1983, in Tokyo, Japan. When he was 7 years old, he was practicing wrestling moves like Liger bombs in his bedroom with his pillows. He was trained in both MMA and pro wrestling while he was still in junior high school. He did professional MMA from 2003 to 2005. He had 8 MMA matches and he was undefeated. Multiple MMA promotions offered him a contract. However, Kushida decided to retire from MMA and start a pro wrestling career instead. He went to Mexico and was trained in Lucha Libre Mexicana by El Oriental, a member of the Moreno family in Mexico. Kushida made his debut in Mexico on September 18, 2005. He returned to Japan in 2006 and started working for the Hustle promotion after being scouted by Tajiri, who took him under his wing. Kushida made his Japanese pro wrestling debut on September 7, 2006 in the Hustle promotion, a promotion founded by Nobuhiko Takada. At the time, the promotion considered their style fighting opera style, which was ironically fitting because about 12 and a half years later, Kushida would join a sports entertainment company elsewhere. Kushida started competing for All Japan Pro Wrestling in the summer of 2007. In 2008, he made appearances in Osaka Pro Wrestling. In 2009, he spent time in American and Canadian indie promotions. Once he returned to Japan in 2010, he started wrestling for the Smash promotion. He started wrestling in New Japan Pro Wrestling and participated in their annual Best of the Super Juniors tournament in 2010 as well. He was impressive enough to be offered a full-time New Japan contract in 2011. He spent a majority of the 2010s in New Japan. His final matches for New Japan that decade took place in January 2019. Later that year, he left the pro wrestling world and became a sports entertainer for a certain company in the United States. Here's a little history lesson about Kushida's main finishing submission move, the Kimura lock, also known as the hoverboard lock. On October 23, 1951, Masahiko Kimura, a Japanese judoka who had an infamous pro wrestling match against Riki Dozan in 1954, defeated Brazilian jiu-jitsu founder Hélio Gracie in the famous Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. As the story goes, Kimura was greeted with raw eggs and insults by the Brazilian crowd. However, Kimura executed an arm lock, but Gracie didn't surrender, so Kimura rotated Gracie's arm until it broke. Gracie still refused to give up, resulting in Kimura breaking the arm a second time. As Kimura was about to break the arm a third time, Gracie's corner threw the towel in, and that gave Kimura the win in that match in 1951. That's what his brutal submission hold is known as the Kimura. Kushida was one of the very best junior heavyweight pro wrestlers of the mid and late 2010s. Along with being one of the best at figuring out how to incorporate his MMA background into junior heavyweight style matches, he was also an extremely gifted athlete and a diverse worker who didn't have to limit his opponents to working a certain style, and in fact preferred to challenge himself and thus everyone involved. He was capable of having a high-quality match against virtually any capable opponent. He was involved in a good number of matches that were excellent or better. He was an excellent in-ring storyteller with excellent wrestling psychology. One of the best things about watching Kushida matches is that you won't get to see the same match over and over, as instead you'll get to see a lot of variety. Though he had success in his brief MMA career, his beginnings in pro wrestling were much more humble. Kushida certainly came a long way. Even though the quality of his matches improved tremendously as his career moved forward, some of his innate qualities that facilitated these improvements were his passion, dedication, and admirable work ethic. While he wasn't a product of the New Japan Dojo, his status in the promotion rose very quickly, and he wound up easily being the most important Japanese wrestler in their junior heavyweight division during the second half of the 2010s. Here's my overall conclusion of Kushida's career. In 2006, 2007, and 2008, he was okay. He already showed that he was talented, but he was still figuring things out. In 2009 and 2010, he was decent. Not only did his athleticism make him stand out, but he also started becoming better at being a smart in-ring performer. In 2011, he was good. He had become a full-time member of the New Japan roster and started working with their top junior heavyweights on a regular basis. From 2012 through 2015, he was excellent. He had improved significantly, and he really started coming into his own and was clearly top talent. In 2016, 2017, and 2018, he was great. This was the peak era of his career, and some of his performances from this era were some of the most memorable performances in the history of the New Japan Junior Heavyweight division. From 2019 onward, his career wasn't that outstanding anymore, as he ended up spending 3 years as a sports entertainer in the States, which caused him to lose the momentum he had built up as a top worker in Japan. When he returned to Japan in the summer of 2022, he failed to live up to his previous reputation. That was partially due to the fact that 3 years of sports entertainment in the States had detrimental effects on his in-ring work, but New Japan booker Gedo's poor quality booking of Kushida in 2022 and beyond also played a role. Still, Kushida's work and performances were good, even after his sabbatical. Kushida was able to make the most of the situation in many different settings, whether it be the New Japan Junior Heavyweight division, the smaller Japanese promotions, or the foreign excursions early in his career. In the early North American matches, he showed that he could adapt to the North American scene and work heelish, while he generally worked as a sympathetic babyface type worker most of his career. He certainly showed that he could be a great rudo in Lucha Libre Mexicana. He also appeared on shows in the British Isles and impressed people over there as well. He even played his role well in fighting opera and sports entertainment shows. Kushida has always been able to incorporate the lucha style he was trained in very well. When you factor in that he has an MMA background as well, it's safe to say that he's really been able to work a wide variety of styles and be successful at it. In some ways, he's basically a jack of all trades, and arguably a master of none. One of his main strengths was his versatility, and this played a big role in him having a history of excellent matches with a wide variety of opponents. His ability to carry opponents in a selfless manner was incredibly useful for the overall quality of the matches he was involved in. Plus, he always seemed to give a good effort at the very least. He was arguably the most consistent junior heavyweight of the 2010s. He would have a good to very good match on a regular basis, and he was involved in a good number of matches that were excellent or better. His work was often so smooth that it was sometimes easy to take for granted how much of an all-round wrestler he was and how much he was able to enhance the quality of matches. Kushida should be remembered as one of the best Japanese junior heavyweight wrestlers of the mid and late 2010s. He was the junior heavyweight ace of the 2010s. Along with being able to work an impressive number of matches that were excellent or great, his ability also translated into many kayfabe accomplishments. He won the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title on 6 occasions. He won the Best of the Super Juniors tournament twice. And he won the 2016 Super J Cup, among other title and tournament victories. When it comes to the booking, there were times when New Japan could have done more with him, especially in 2013, because at times he got lost in the shuffle for a bit by being booked in many multi-man matches, although that seemed to be an ongoing issue with Gedo's booking in general. Gedo's booking of Kushida in 2018 also could have been better, and let's not even begin to talk about 2022 and beyond. When you think of some of the great history-making junior heavyweights from previous eras, like Satoru Sayama and Jushin Thunder Liger, Kushida represented a new era. But very few wrestlers have accomplished what Kushida did in the 2010s, as he was a very important wrestler for that decade. He'll go down as one of the all-time greats, and he's arguably one of the 40 greatest men's pro wrestlers ever. Here is a list of Kushida's 15 best matches. October 9th, 2017, Kushida versus Will Ospreay. The match started off with some really spectacular moves. Kushida drop-kicked Ospreay over the guardrail, and as Kushida was about to hit a move after jumping off a chair that he had placed on the floor, Ospreay was one step ahead and caught Kushida in midair. When Ospreay went for the space-flying tiger drop, Kushida caught him in midair with an armbar. Ospreay was definitely giving his best effort here, and Kushida once again showed his tremendous all-round qualities as a wrestler. They clearly wanted to do something different here, and that certainly made for an interesting match. This was even better than their great Best of the Super Juniors final match, because this match had more urgency and was wrestled at a faster pace. Also, it was interesting to see them having learned from each other's moves, which meant they were avoiding each other's moves more often instead of simply letting the other do whatever they pleased and going along with it. This was a super exciting match. The action was non-stop, and they didn't give the viewer a chance to even consider looking away. Great match. 4.75 stars.